Hi friend, welcome to your evening wind down. It might be a good idea to have a couple of props for this practice. If you don't have store-bought yoga props at home, don't despair. Think about perhaps grabbing some kind of a throw or even a thicker blanket, which could always substitute in a roll for what we do with our yoga bolster. And if blocks are handy, they might be nice to have by, but definitely not a necessity. I'm going to invite you to really slow down now. I'm hoping that this evening wind down is placed at a moment in time for you that it can serve exactly that purpose. So when you're ready, find your way into a comfortable seat and we'll drop in together. Soften your shoulders, close your eyes. We're going to take a couple extra moments to land here tonight. And depending on the activity of your day, it can take a bit to bring all the attentions back inward. So in this moment, just give yourself some patience as you start to bring your awareness back onto a layer of breath through the periphery of your body into the center of your body. How do you fill yourself up? And how do you let it go? Once you feel like you have got your breath to a place where it's fairly fluid, fairly even, I would love to invite you to notice how many seconds it takes to inhale until you feel like you're a comfortable, full amount of breath. And when you exhale, can you work to try to match that count so the breath is truly even between the length of the inhale and the length of the exhale? Same amount of seconds in, same amount of seconds out. And I don't want to dictate for you how many seconds that should be. But ideally, we're encouraging the breath to lengthen a bit without needing to push ourselves to any form of extreme. Winding down simply means that we're going to give ourselves space to do just that. We're going to slow down. If you've found your comfortable rhythm, I'm going to invite you to take 5 more. Next time you exhale, you're going to soften your shoulders even more deeply and flutter open your eyes. And from here, we're going to shift. So if you're sitting on anything, you might decide to move that out of the way. I'm going to kick the feet over and join up in a tabletop pose. And we'll set tabletop up as we always do, with a mindful spread of the hands, a stacking of hips over knees, and use an inhale to drop your belly and slide your chest open. And then with an exhale, push the floor away and round. One more rhythm like that. Inhale, lift your chest forward, gaze comes towards comfy. And then exhale, release the upper back, drape the head, and tailbone points down. So if it feels good to continue to slide forward and backward this way on the calling of your own breath, really respond to that. And it might feel wonderful to even close the eyes and take all the importance of the outer form out of this. In my body, I even like to create some more sweeping organic type shapes. So if it inspires you at all to begin to move through your shoulders or your ribs or your hips or your neck, invite yourself to explore this next 4-5 breaths maybe Just really allowing all of the sticky bits of your body to be expressed through really sweeping, organic, rolling actions. And if that doesn't speak to you, that forward and backward sweep of the cat-cow that we started with is just fine. And then we're gonna come back to pause in the center here. We're gonna work our hands a little bit further forward of our shoulders. And when you're ready to, we're gonna tuck our toes and lift our hips up really nice and high for a downward facing dog. I'd love this downward dog to really have some organic sweep to it, so bending one knee quite a lot as the opposite heel sinks down and vice versa. Clearing all the way through the base of the back with a big lift of the tail. Let's take one more big breath. And when your exhale comes, you're gonna bring the knees back down to the earth. Your hands are gonna walk a little bit further forward in front of your shoulders, and you're gonna elevate your right leg back behind you. Track the toes back toward the shins, so there's a flexion in the foot, and then lower the toes to the mat so the ball of the foot connects to the back. You can stay high on your hands, or it might even feel good to lower down onto your elbows. Just give a nice long stretch through the back of the calf and the base of the hamstring. One more. You can keep your elbows on the floor to transition, or it might feel good to just draw the right knee in beneath you. Stretch the left leg back behind. Pull the toes back toward the shin and then drop the foot to the back of the mat, giving a little stretch to the base of the back of the left heel. You could do this with a pulsing or a soft laying back. Breathe some awareness through that lower portion of your body. And lift the gaze a bit. We're gonna bring this left knee back in beneath us. Walk back up onto hands. We're gonna send the knees out quite wide, big toes tracking together at the back, and then drop our sit bones back toward our heels in a child's pose. So if it's comfortable enough to bring your forehead right to the floor, that would be great. If it felt more comfortable to potentially stack the hands and the wrists so you can give yourself a bit of a human pillow, that might be nice too. Just indulging in that soft pull of gravity. The change of the position of the body will mean that our breath is changed. So what might we do with it to reestablish full? What might we do to reestablish even? We're going to stretch the body over to the left. So when you're ready, stretch the arms out really long, and then walk hand by hand over to the right side until you're as far as you can stretch through your left ribs without really needing to lift the sit bones away from the heels. Surrender the head back to the floor. Breathe the last couple long, smooth breaths through the left side. And hand by hand, we're going to walk back through center and then over to the left, same thing. Trying to keep the arms really long, stretching through the ribs, sinking through our hips. Good, walking all the way back to center one more time. Lifting the gaze, and then how it makes the most sense to you, we're gonna lift up and slither through down onto our belly. When you get onto your belly, we're gonna set ourselves up in a sphinx pose. So bring your elbows to the floor with your fingertips pointing forward. If it feels okay to keep the elbows nested right under the shoulders, that's great. But if you feel like you need more space, layering more of the rib cage down into the floor, feel free to walk the elbows further forward so there's less lift in the low back body. If this feels okay here, we'll find a space where we can close down the eyes, soften the shoulders. It would be wonderful if you felt like there was a soft lift in the space at the front of the sternum bone, but the tips of the shoulders, the outer heads of the arm bones, were sinking and melting back toward our heels. Take one more nice smooth breath. Good, and then pushing through your hands, part the elbows wide so you can bow the chest down. Bring your hands to frame your breastplate. We're gonna push through hands and knees to glide up. We're gonna go through one last downward facing dog, so the hands will move again in front of the shoulders. Toes will tuck. Bum lifts up nice and high. And then I'll leave it to you whether the body feels like slinking around some more with gentle movements will feel good, or maybe a nice, long, slow, static stretch for just a couple more breaths. You're gonna look towards your hands, and when your exhale comes, walk or take a series of steps and come all the way up. And when you get here, we're gonna soften the upper back and spill toward the floor. And so it's really yogi's choice how it is that you might like to experience this forward fold. If you touch the floor really easily, considering taking a reach for opposite wrist or elbow. Depending on how you're feeling in the sides or the back of the legs, a little sway or a movement might feel good. Really give some permission through the muscles of the neck, through the head, to descend, to release. And then breathe life through the layer of the back body for one more. And if you've held elbows, please release them. We'll flex a lot through the knees like you're laying your belly on your thigh bones. When your inhale comes, we're gonna lift and roll and round and come all the way to stand. We're gonna take a couple of really slow salutations that I really like at the end of the day. We're gonna keep our arms by our sides the whole time. So the movement is gonna just come through the chest and the shoulders and the neck. Pushing evenly through the feet into mountain pose. We're gonna use an inhale to lift the tips of the arm bones back, peel open the front of the chest. And then as you exhale, flex through the knees and take a lazy forward fold. At halfway up with an inhale, fingertips might help you stretch the chest forward. And then again, drape down with an exhale, forward fold. Good. A lot of flexion in the knees. Inhale, lift and roll and round, come up to stand. And then with an exhale, spiral your chest open. And do that again. Inhale, shoulders come in a big loop, lift the chest up. And then with an exhale, flex through your knees and spill over the front of the legs, fold. Halfway up with an inhale, flexed knees might be good, fingertips might help. Simple forward fold, exhale. Push through feet, inhale, lift and roll and round. And then exhale, drop the loop of the shoulders down. One more like this. Inhale, shoulders come up, lift through the chest. Exhale, flex through the knees and fold. Awesome. Halfway up with an inhale, mindful, simple forward fold. Good. From this forward fold again, surrender the crown of the head. Surrender the arms in any way that it feels right. Breathe one more big breath with the layer of the back. And from here, we're going to flex through our knees quite a bit. Lower our sit bones down toward our heels through any form of sitting that makes sense to your body. We're going to take quite a wide variation of our Baddha Konasana, our cobbler diamond. You may or may not even want to put something under your thighs or your knees to support. Lift up super tall through the space of the chest, and then we're going to find our movement through our hip crease. So it's as though we're reaching our heart forward to our toes. And at some place the body's going to say, this is good for me here, I'm going to stop. When you come to that outer edge, I really recommend that you give yourself space to surrender the head and the neck. Surrender the effort that might hide in places like the squeezing of your hands or your jaw. Invite your breath, if you can, to come back to be long and even. We're going to be here for about 5. next time you inhale, you're going to begin to lift your gaze forward and draw yourself all the way up to sit. We're going to want to have our props handy because these next few poses will be quite still. We're going to come all the way onto our back. When you get here, you're going to give yourself the room to spread your arms out wide. We're going to start to tip the knees over toward the left side. I like to manually scoop my hip into the center so that I really have room to rotate through this midsection of my back. And when you get into the variation of this twist, you can really decide how it is that you might like to support it. So you could always put something under the knee or between the knees. In some bodies, it'll feel really good to cross the right leg over the left leg. I'm gonna opt for that in this moment. Send the shoulders down into the floor. Do whatever it is that you might like to do to snuggle them in beneath you. And then we're gonna come back to that even count of breath. And again, we're gonna take 5. So ideally, without speeding you up or slowing you down, when your 5 full breaths have moved through you, use an inhale to lift the knees up through center and uncross if you've crossed. You might need to take small movements to aid your way to the second side. Knees sink over toward the right. And again, you can prop, you can cross, you can split the difference between the two. Settling the body and coming to the flow of the breath. If it's working, 5 full count. And when your inhale comes, lift the knees back up through center, use the feet to help you pivot the hips. And then it might feel really good to hug the knees in toward the body, just stabilizing through that space of low back, finding a little neutrality before we move on. And then rolling off to the side so your hands can help lift you. We're gonna come up. We're gonna bring our bolster onto the mat. So as I said in the beginning, if you don't have a bolster, it's really not a problem. You can take any form of a blanket. This one's a little thin, but you could pause the video and get a blanket thick enough. You could make some sort of a barrel that you could lay along the length of your spine. So we're gonna bring the bolster out behind us. And depending on how you feel in your back body, you might even decide that you want a fold of a throw or a blanket to the base of this so that you don't too deeply emphasize the scoop of your low back. I recommend starting with the feet on the floor, and we're gonna lay ourselves back onto our rolled blanket or our bolster and let our hands spill off toward the sides. So palms can spill toward the ceiling. This gives that same external roll of the arms and the shoulder sockets as standing in mountain pose. And keep the feet to the floor. If it feels good, you could stretch them out long and cross them like when we're seated. And put soles of the feet back together and the knees wide again. Or again, you could go back to a variation where the feet stay on the floor. We're not going to stay in this posture for an incredibly long period of time, but it might feel nice to really give yourself permission to release the tip of each arm bone in opposite directions, peeling open the space at the front of our chest here. Softening the weight of the head and the neck down into the bolster, and just like we did in our twists, let's take 5 deep, full breaths. some of us, coming to recline in poses like this are exactly the medicine that we need. So the beauty of this being a video is if you want to pause it now and linger here for a bit longer, please do. Otherwise, we're going to give ourselves the opportunity to roll off toward one side so elbow and a free arm can catch us. And we'll move things out of the way. We're going to come and lie all the way back down. And when we come to lie back down, we're going to spread the arms open wide and separate the feet and just take some swishing of the knees side to side. So the wider the feet are, the more mobility we'll have to really roll the femur bones in the hip sockets. And just noticing the range of what feels good and what feels tight and what feels sticky. And the next time the knees point up into center, I'm gonna leave them there. We'll heel toe feet just close enough together that it's comfortable to knock the knees into the center. And then bend your elbows so you can bring your hands to rest on your body. If it's available, maybe bring them to the space where you can feel the rim of your lower rib cage, where the softness of your belly meets the rim of your ribs. For just a couple more breaths, come back to this space where the evenness of our breath is tempered, even counted. And depending on where you are at in your evening, this might be a really nice opportunity to pause here for a couple moments more, or potentially use this moment now as a transition to transfer yourself to bed and prepare for an even deeper rest. I thank you very, very much for sharing a portion of your evening with me. I look forward to seeing you next time on the mat. Namaste.